to another edition of the Mindset Game podcast, and I'm your host, James Roberts. Before we get started with this week's show, first off, let me take this opportunity to welcome back the regular listeners, and if this is your first time listening to the show, I hope you enjoy this episode and decide to subscribe to the show. And on today's show, I've got Brett Parks. He's looking to compete with the USA sitting volleyball team in Tokyo 2020. So welcome on to the show, Brett.
Hey, James. How you doing today?
I'm good, and yourself?
It's good to be here. I'm doing well. Thank you.
So before we delve into today's episode, Brett, can you kind of talk about your journey from where you started in sport to where you are, and obviously your aspirations to make the Paralympics in 3 years' time?
Yeah, sure. I was a sun and beach kid. I was born in Miami, Florida, in the United States, and I was always outside. I was always playing sports. I was always doing something. If there was any kind of ball, I would find a way to play a game with it. And it went through high school. I played baseball and football, and I got a football scholarship to Carson Newman College in Jefferson City, Tennessee. I did that for a little bit, and then I bounced around after that. And eventually I heard my country calling my name, and I enlisted in the United States Navy. And, at that moment of my life was perfect. Everything was perfect. I had the woman of my dreams was my wife. I had a 17-month-old boy at the time with her, and she was 7 months pregnant. And I was a naval air crewman on the PC-3 Orions. So everything I wanted in life, I had. And it was in October 17th, 2012, where my life just got turned upside down. And I was off base. I wasn't deployed yet. I was in Jacksonville, Florida. I was also a personal trainer because I loved seeing what fitness and weights I loved seeing how it transformed people's bodies. I loved seeing how it transformed my body. So I was a traveling personal trainer or fitness trainer. I would go to people's gyms and I would train them basically. And I wouldn't be set at one gym because I didn't want them to have to pay for a membership and everything. So I would go to people's gym, and on October 17th, 2012, I'm standing there outside the front of the gym, and I heard a scream behind the gym. It was one of those blood-curdling screams. And what really made me kind of freeze right where I was is that it was a man screaming. And it's not every day that you hear a man scream. Girls in movies, they scream all the time. So you're kind of used to girls screaming. But when it's a man, it's a little different. So I kind of start making my way over there, and I heard this lady yelling out, "Oh my gosh, somebody help him, he's being robbed." So I dropped everything, my speed ladder, my fitness bands, and I just run around the corner, and there's this big dude robbing this little guy. And as soon as the guy who was the robber, as soon as he saw me, he tried to run away. He tried to run, and he didn't know this about me, but I was one of the fastest guys I knew. I ran a 4.43 in the 40-yard dash, so I was pretty quick. So I hawked this kid down, and he's there. He has his jeans below his butt, trying to run away from me, pulling his pants up. And I actually start running right beside him, and I look over and say, "Hey, man, where are you going?" And he knew the gig was up. He was he started slowing down, still walking kind of quick. And I went ahead and I grabbed his sweatshirt sleeve and said, "Hey," I said, "where are you going?" And he said, "Let go of me, dog." And I was like, in my head, I'm like, "Yeah, right. I'm going to let go of you because you told me to let go of you." So I said, "No, man, listen, the cops are called. Nobody's going anywhere until we figure this out." But he kept walking. I'm walking with him, and he was going straight towards the exit. So I decided to get in front of him, and I grabbed both of his sleeves. And I said, "Hey," I said, "where are you going?" And he told me one more time. He said, "Let go of me, dog." And I said, no, not a chance. And it was funny because I noticed his hands were in his sweatshirt pockets. And I was looking at that, and I was like, okay, one of these times he's going to try to hit me. He's going to try to take a swing at me. So I had his sleeves. I was like, all right, I'm going to look at his shoulders. The second one of those shoulders lifts up, that means it's taking his hand out of his sweatshirt pocket and he's going to take a swing at me. So I had it planned perfectly. I was going to scoop him, take him down, and just lay on him until the cops got there. It was a perfect plan that was not executed. What happened was he had a gun in his sweatshirt pockets. And while I was looking at his shoulders, I just heard 2 shots. I heard 2 loud bangs. The first shot hit me in the abdomen. The second shot missed. And I'd like to tell you that I absorbed the bullet. I was like, oh, that hurt, but you're not going anywhere. I would love to tell you I did that, but that's not what happened. I just fell like a load of bricks, and I couldn't have been happier to see him go. He ran off, and when I hit the ground, my first thought in my head was, you've got to be kidding me. I almost laughed a little bit. I was like, this is so funny. This is so comedic. Like, this is like a movie. And I almost chuckled. And then my second thought came to my head, and it really sobered me up quick. I thought to myself, I'm going to die today. And so I laid my head on the concrete in the parking lot, and I just waited for death to take me. And that was the beginning of my journey to recovery. And sports, and parasports, adaptive sports was a huge, huge part of my recovery. So I made a long story a lot longer by telling you where I got into the adaptive sports, and that was it, me being shot on October 17, 2012.
And you kind of talk about, obviously, your naval history. Is that what kind of brought you, well, to light with the Invictus Games?
Yes, well, when I got shot, I was rushed to the hospital, and as I was riding in the hospital in the ambulance, I turned to the paramedic. I was like, "Hey, man, is it bad?" And he looks at me. He's like, "No, it's not bad. You're going to be fine. You'll be out tomorrow." I was like, "Oh, okay, good." So I got shot. If I would have gotten shot a few more times, I could have made a rap album, but no, just once. So they brought me into the emergency room. One of the nurses asked me how I felt, and I thought that was the dumbest question in the world. I told her I was bleeding, and I said, I'm hurting and I'm scared. And that was the last thing I remember. And it turns out I wouldn't wake up for 20 days. I was in a 20-day coma. At that time, my wife was told every day that I wasn't going to make it through the night. They kept giving me 6 hours to live, 6 hours to live. She was starting to make funeral arrangements because they were sure I was going to die. And I never did. I kept hanging on. And so when I was in the hospital a total of 4 months, and then when I was at the VA hospital, my 3rd and 4th month, somebody came to me and they said, "Listen, I'm with Navy Wounded Warrior, Navy Safe Harbor. They have an adaptive sports program. You would be great in adaptive Paralympic type sports. We'd really like you to come out and try it." Now, at this point in my life, I was in so much pain. I just realized I didn't have a leg anymore. I lost a kidney and a third of my colon. My leg was amputated below the knee because my vena cava was severed, my major artery in my leg. So I lost a lot of me, a bit of me I lost. And the last thing I wanted to hear was, "Oh, hey, you should start playing sports." I almost threw my lunch tray at her. I was so upset with her. I told her, "Get out of here. I don't want anything to do with it." And my whole goal when I woke up and I was in all that pain was to find a way to be able to play with my son when I got out of the hospital. And, you know, guys like you and me, we know that's crazy talk because we can do anything that an able-bodied person can do. Sometimes we do it a lot better. But when you just realize you lost a body part, and it's so taboo to do that and to have that. When you're growing up, you don't really see many people with missing limbs. You're just not thinking straight. So then she tricked me. She came back a couple months later and she said, "Hey, Brett, do you want to go to Hawaii?" I was like, "Hawaii? Yeah, I want to go to Hawaii." And she's like, "Oh, good. I was like, when is it? And she's like, oh, it's in September this. I'm like, sign me up. I'm all about it. And she's like, great. I just need you to pick 2 sports. I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, it's an adaptive sports camp. You have to pick 2 sports. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Come on, man. And I was like, fine. For Hawaii, I will go there and I will play 2 sports. So I actually chose swimming and shot put discus, so field. And I guess it's called athletics, right? So I picked swimming because I was a Miami boy. I learned to swim before I learned to walk. So I felt very natural in the water, and then I chose field because I know that that shot put and discus and javelin, that was like some of the first events in the original Olympics. It's like, man, this is really cool. I've always loved track and field athletics. So I went there and I got in the pool and I did 1 lap in the pool and I got out and I said, I'm never going to do this again because it just didn't feel right. You know, I was missing a leg. I felt like I had a lucky fin and I was swimming in circles. So I got back in the pool the next day. I was like, you know what, let's push through it, just take it easy. And my body started adapting. It started to understand the different weights and balances I had to have in the water, the kind of type of buoyancy. And then at the end of the camp, we were competing against Air Force, and I think the Army was there as well. And in all the swim meets, I took first place in all of them. And swim events, I took first place in all of them. And I was like, wow, I'm actually pretty good at this. So then that started my vision to go to the Paralympics as a swimmer. A little did I know that I'd later be recruited for sitting volleyball. But yeah, I got into adaptive sports through just these adaptive sports programs to like Navy Safe Harbor to get me in and get me going, even though it was the last thing I wanted to do at the time. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
That's not a bad way to get into sports, though, is it?
No, Hawaii? No, not at all.
What would you call it? Not mind trickery. Reverse psychology.
It's exactly what it was, and I was okay with it.
But what would have been? Would London? Oh God, what the year would it have been? Would London have been your first Invictus Games then?
Yes, it was my first Invictus Games. I think I was under a year, maybe just about a year into my injury. So I was still kind of learning my body, and I was really good at the 50 freestyle. I was really good at that. But my teammate, Redmond Ramos, he was a swimmer as well. And I was better than him in the 100 meter. So they told me, you know what, you should swim the 100 because you're better than Red, and Red's the only shot he has is in the 50. So I was like, darn it, this whole time for like 7 months, I was training for the 50, and then they want me to do the 100. So I went out there and I made it to the finals, the medal round. And when I got to the medal round, I think I took like second to last. I gasped because I didn't know how to swim the 100. But yeah, Invictus Games in London was my first Invictus Games. I made it to the finals in what was it? In discus, and I took, I think, 5th place there. It was a great experience for me, a great opportunity. The funny thing is that I was asked to play sitting volleyball a couple months back with the USA sitting volleyball, and I went to Invictus Games wanting to play sitting volleyball, but they took me off because I was swimming, and it both fell at the same time, so I couldn't play sitting volleyball.
And can you explain what it was like to kind of represent your country in, well, an Olympic arena?
It's one of those things, and you know this, where we can't really explain it. You know that it's something special. You know that it's an incredible thing to be a part of. But until you actually step on the court, step onto the in the by the pool and have all these people in this nation cheering you on, do you really? It's such a great feeling. It's almost like a high that you feel. I know that with the oh shoot, I lost my train of thought, but it was something really cool, and if I would have remembered it. But no, it's really an incredible feeling. And when I was asked to be in the Invictus Games, I jumped at the opportunity, not only because I get to go to London, where I had never been, and it was such a beautiful place, but also, and this is what I was going to say before, when I enlisted in the United States military, when I became a naval air crewman, I signed the dotted line because I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to preserve the freedoms that were given to me when I was a child and where we are today. And when you get injured, the military, intelligently, they say, you know, you were this way, but now you're this way, and your 100% is someone else's 60% right now. So we're going to go ahead and retire you, and then you get retired. So there's kind of like a vacuum in your life. You don't really know what to do because here you are, you wanted to serve your country, and you were serving your country, and now it just got taken away from you. Well, being a part of like Invictus Games, the Paralympics, or World Championships, where you're representing the United States of America or representing, you know, any country that you're in, you have the opportunity to represent your nation once again. You know, I'm here serving still, but I'm just serving in a different capacity. And that's very special for me because that vacuum is filled now with the same patriotism and the same willingness to sacrifice for my country.
But would you not say that's a wrong mindset for the military to have to an extent? Kind of can't say decommission, because that's more usually associated with a vehicle. But
yeah, no, you're right.
Could somebody that is, you could say probably with respect to yourself, below knee amputee, could they not give you a desk job and thus move somebody that's doing that obviously more? That's able to go on deployment.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I think that's something that the military's gotten a lot better at. I know for a while there it was, oh, you have an amputation, you're out no matter what. But then there are guys like August O'Neill and Sergeant DT, and those guys, they went back. Like August O'Neill, he was a paratrooper in the Air Force, and that's a spec op. That's a special ops. That's like being a Navy SEAL or SAS. And he got injured. He got blown up. He lost his leg above the knee, and he got better. And he said, I want to stay in. They're like, no, you can't stay in. He's like, I will do all the retesting, and I will qualify. And they said, okay, try it. They didn't think he was going to make it, but he breezed through it. And there are guys like that, like Austin and DT. Those guys are great ambassadors for us, because now the military doesn't look at us as automatically damaged goods. We're only damaged goods if we can't pass the testing, the physical testing. As for my case went, I was a little bit more realistic for myself, because, you know, at that point I was 33 years old, turning 34. I just had this amputation, and I just felt like, you know what, I can't fly anymore because of my kidney and losing a third of my colon. So I could have fought for it, and there would have been commanders and XOs, COs that they would have fought for me and with me. But I was just kind of realistic. It's like, you know what, let's give a younger kid this spot. I think it's time for me to move on. And that's what I did. But it's still, it left a vacuum, because like, wow, this is what I plan to do for the next 30 years. And now what? So, but I totally agree with you. I think that it is the wrong way to look at things, as far as the military to government saying you're damaged goods, you're no good. But I think they're really getting really good at changing that mentality.
And if we come back to kind of the Invictus Games, were you fortunate enough to compete, obviously, when it was in the US?
Yes, I had the opportunity to compete in Orlando, Invictus Games, and they put me on the sitting volleyball team that year. And, the first year in London, the Brits, you guys won, and it was great. It's how it should have been because it was the hometown.
You could probably go, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Brett.
Yeah.
But you could probably say, to a certain extent, the British team, this would be like a bit PC now, competed in a way because a lot of the athletes had competed in the Paralympics. So you could say, well, should that games be a stepping stone? It's hard to fathom a little bit. How would you kind of put it into perspective? Would you see it as a program that is better served as rehabilitation, or would you see it as stepping stone towards the Paralympics and thus a competition entity in itself?
Well, I know for us, for USA, the Americans, we have something called the Warrior Games as well. It's the Department of Defense Warrior Games, and it's every year, but it's between the branches. And actually, you guys have come over a few times, and last year we had Australia come as well. To me, the Warrior Games is the stepping stone for rehabilitation. That's where, man, it's a victory just to get on the track, just to finish a race. And then I feel like Invictus Games is another level up. Prince Harry does a great job with that, and man, he's one of my favorite people because of what he's done with Invictus Games. But that's another step up. Those are the guys the athletes that, man, they got on the track, they finished races. That's great. Now let's try to win races. So it goes from finishing a race, winning race, and then the last step to me is the Paralympics, where it's, hey, let's get a gold medal for our nation. Let's compete on an international level in a higher capacity. So I think that that Invictus Games is right there in the middle. It's a good place to be because you get both worlds. You have Paralympic guys that actually come down and compete. You have guys that, man, it's a victory just to step on the court, and they're in the Invictus Games as well. And there's no better motivator. Well, actually, there is a better motivator, but winning, being able to call yourself a winner at something, or taking silver, or taking bronze, that's a great motivator for rehabilitation, because the better you get, the better you're going to feel.
And in terms of, obviously, you were talking about the Brits winning it, and I'm kind of coming back to my point with they were able to use, obviously, I could probably name 3, possibly 4, because David went on to compete at the Paralympics, but you had the likes of Charlie Walker, Netarana, see if I can get his name right, Derek Duolangi. Obviously had competed in London in the Paralympics for GB, and thus, well, I wouldn't say guaranteed to win, but you probably added pressure. Well, you've competed at a higher level, you should be able to deliver the goods. So kind of coming on to the next point there, Brett, obviously, can you explain what was it like, obviously, because it was at Universal Studios in Orlando. Was it kind of hyped up to a certain extent because it was in that kind of environment?
Yes, it was at the ESPN Center on the Walt Disney grounds. But when I first heard that Orlando was picking it up, I thought to myself, this is going to be a disaster, because London did it so great. It was so beautiful. It was perfectly done. And I really had a concern that the Americans just wouldn't embrace it. I mean, let's be honest. I just thought, they have better things to do than watch us broke guys playing sports. But when I stepped onto the grounds, the ESPN ball fields and everything, there was an electricity like I never felt before. ESPN was covering it, and there was, you had all of the celebrities there covering it. You had Michael J. Fox there. You had a bunch of people there. And I was shocked. I really was. Here we are. And what was it? 2000, what was London? 2014?
I think so.
So we're here in London, 2014, and we're like, it's not going to get better than this. But because of what what Prince Harry was able to do, everyone else followed suit. Like America's like, okay, well, let's do the same thing, but then let's add this and this. And now I know next year is going to be, or actually, I think in like a month or two, it's going to be the Invictus Games in Toronto, and they're taking what they saw in London and in Orlando, and they're going to make it even better. Let's throw this, and this in now. So it's, to me, it was so electric, but I can't imagine how electric Toronto's going to be.
But then do you not think having them so close together kind of diminishes the sporting kind of essence? Because obviously, as the Olympics and Paralympics, it's quite sick. What's the word I want? Cyclistic in terms of it's every 4 years. Do you kind of think the Invictus should maybe possibly take that kind of model? Or do you think it should be as it is?
Yes. There's two sides of this for me. Number one, I wouldn't mind seeing it like every 2 years. I think soccer is like that, right? Or football is like that, how it's every 2 years they have the World Cup. And I'm okay with every 2 years. Now, the reason why I think that every year is good is because there are some of these ex-military soldiers, these veterans that if they're not focusing on Invictus Games, they have a lot of idle time. And idle time to a guy or girl suffering with depression or PTSD, that's not good if they don't have goals to strive for. So if you compete in the Invictus Games and then like 4 weeks later, you're told, hey, you're going to be invited to Invictus Games next year, now you have a goal. So now you have a reason to wake up and get out of bed every day. I always tell people, if it weren't for adaptive sports, if it wasn't for me training for competition, I might be in bed all day, every day. And that's not a good place to be, no matter who you are, let alone somebody who suffers with post-traumatic stress. So that's the only reason why I think that every year is a good thing. But if they would say we're going to do it every 2 years or every 3 years, I would be perfectly fine with that too. Because it gets taxing on the athlete's family members, and also like the ones that put it together, like Prince Harry and his crew. So yeah, I can see both sides of the coin there.
And do you not have aspirations to compete in the one in Australia? I think it's in 2019. I think.
Yes. I really want to go to Australia. I really much. I'm not going to the Toronto Invictus Games. I won't be there. I'm taking a year off, hoping that they call me and say, hey, you skipped last year. Can you come back this year? So I really want to go. My perfect idea of Invictus, for me is to go to Australia. I think it goes back to London after that. I'm pretty sure that's what happens. I'm not positive though. That's just a rumor mill. But if I could go back to London and close out my Invictus Games career there, that would be great, because that's where it started. And if it weren't for, adaptive sports and competitions like Prince Harry's Invictus Games, who knows where I'd be.
And kind of going on to, obviously, with your aspirations to make the national team for the Paralympics in Tokyo, I think off the top of my head, there's quite a few ex-military in the team, from my recollection.
There are actually quite a few. I think half the team, as far as this past Paralympics, half the team were military. And then we have even more now. I think there's 3 more veterans that are now on the national team. So we're loading up with veterans, and I'm hoping that'll be that next one that comes up there in the next few weeks. Right now I'm on the A team, which is it's A2 team actually. So we're in the pipeline. We're just going to camps, just getting ready for the speed of the national team. So I'm hoping they pull me up in the next few weeks.
And coming from a kind of a skill type environment now, what's it been like for you personally, obviously going from a very much an aerobic background to having to acquire a totally different skill, and the skills that come with that?
It has definitely been an adjustment. I was used to, like you said, aerobic, more of a longer lasting, but now it's more like an explosion. You have to explode. I'm a hitter, so I'm weak side hitter. So you go back, you transition back, and the ball comes your way, and now you just got to fire out of the cannon and just hit it as hard and accurate as possible. And it definitely is different. I actually train differently than I used to. I used to do a lot of this CrossFit type workouts, but now, because my sport's all about exploding, it's all about explosion. I do a lot of just Olympic lifts without having to do, how many can I do in 15 minutes? No, it's let's do 4 sets. Let's really focus on it. Let's explode through this. So my workouts have changed. My dietary specifications have changed. I'm eating a lot more protein than I used to, because I'm just trying to build up as much when it comes to explosive style lifts. So yeah.
And kind of looking at your visual cues that you give me, obviously, as we're doing this interview face to face, would I be right in saying you're a left-handed hitter? Or something?
Yes, I am a left-handed hitter. That's why they have me on the weak side. I'm okay. I'm okay on the strong side, but people aren't expecting a left-hander on the weak side. So that's one thing I got going for me. I'm all about the left hand. This right arm, though, I try to hit. It's like a wet noodle flying all over the place.
Trying to think. So, from my recollection, going back when I was involved in the sport, I can't think of anybody that's able to hit with both. It's either very much a dominant-handed sport. So I think maybe if the pass or the set has been off the money, then you've got to adjust. Then you can't hit.
Yeah, and then you have to hope that you're so accurate that you're hitting past all the hands. But yeah, I know there's one guy, one of my closest friends, he practices hitting both with left and right, but there's a definite difference. His left hand swing is significantly weaker than his right. So
I'd have thought it'd be not as accurate either.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's being your weaker arm, you've got, well, you could say the proprioception is not as good as, say, your dominant side.
Right.
So, well, but then I think obviously you got to work on your weakness, so to speak, and obviously that sport, if you don't expect it to be done, it's one of those. There's a lot of trickery involved. It's making it's kind of to explain to the listeners. It's kind of a game in itself if you compare it to standing volleyball, because things you can get away with in sitting, you probably couldn't do in standing.
Right. Like a great example is you can block a serve in sitting, but in standing you can't block a serve. So yeah, it's definitely different. I think that sitting's a lot quicker than standing because it's the court isn't as big and you're going all over the place. So, but yeah, there's definite differences to it.
And then obviously we were talking about off air about should we call him a phenom, because obviously he stands out with the Iranian we were talking about. He is, I thought he was about 7 foot. You were saying about 7'2".
Yeah, he's tall.
And obviously we were talking about what would you say? The difficulties are probably coming up against something like that.
Yeah, those are one of those things. Those guys, they're phenoms, and that guy is, like you were saying before, he is raw right now, but he's a guy with that size, that reach. It's a game changer, and you have to plan around him. You can't hope to hit the ball through him. But there's ways around it. You could tip it off, you can hit high hands and tip off his fingertips. And So there's things you can do, but you definitely, if you're watching film, you're watching him. So.
Well, I think it would probably be, off the top of my head, I think it probably, with the tall guys, what country would it have been? Well, obviously, the Bosnians stick to mind because their team is, I'm going to say, I think even the libero is about 6 foot, but all their team is over 6 foot tall. And then you've got the Brazilians who brought in 2 guys, I think both played either standing or beach before they had injuries. So it's like, you've got to adjust. And I think the other countries are probably catching up. And I think the Iranians, I think it was one way, well, if we can't beat them, might as well join them kind of club.
Right. That's right.
But it's a difficult one because they're kind of in themselves, the Iranians and the Bosnians are in kind of a group to themselves, a class within the world rankings. They're thinking, well, you're already better than everybody else anyway. Why do you need to go one step further?
I know. It's like they're putting an exclamation point on their talent on their team. But yeah, the great thing about sport is that you can work to get better, and a team that trusts each other and works as a team and works as one cohesive unit to get better will get better. And I know America, USA, Team USA is. We're on our way. There were many sets that we just barely lost in the 2016 Olympics, or Paralympics. I'm sorry. So yeah, it's it's just teams like that, like the Bosnians and Iranians. They're great teams, but everyone has the potential to be that great. We just have to work at it and keep working.
Oh, you probably go one step further than that. I think it helps that they've both got professional leagues.
Yeah, that helps too. Yeah, with the funding's not where it needs to be in America, just because our women's team is incredible. They took gold in 2016 Paralympics, so there's something else. And then there's us guys who aren't something else right now. But we just have to prove ourselves, and throughout this journey, I think that it'll pay off.
But you would have thought, obviously, there is that from a Olympic standpoint, you've got an not affiliation, but along those lines with volleyball, be it standing or beach. So there's that history. So you'd have thought you would maybe get possibly more support than you actually do get.
Yeah, you would think so, and I think it's coming around. The girls they're on another level, but really, it hasn't been too long in the grand scheme of things that we've had sitting volleyball that we've actually been able to be competitive in. So I think it's just taken a little bit longer to come around. But I think that in relatively short time, we'll have the support and the financing that we need to get as good as we can get.
And off there, Brett, you were saying obviously you guys come together, once a month, and I was obviously explaining to you when I was on the British equivalent, we would train with each other. Off the top of my head, I think about 5 times a week. Obviously, if you guys had that luxury, you could see what the progression would hit. It's a lot steeper, and the advances you're going to make are going to come a lot quicker. But do you think that if you did have that, obviously the US is, we'll take a guess here, we'll say maybe 10 times bigger, obviously, so that makes traveling that much more difficult. Do you think maybe...
I think I lost you.
Got back. Is that come back?
Yeah, it's back. It's back now.
But do you think maybe if you had, because you were talking about, you were a member of the Would you say is it the second team or the third team?
Second team.
If you had a larger pool of athletes to pick from, do you think maybe a model of maybe having regional centers would work better than maybe coming together once a month?
Oh, that would work. That'd be perfect. And I think you're right. Now we do have little like grassroots practice times here and there. I know here in Jacksonville, Florida, where I live right now, there's one guy that shows up on Friday nights at a volleyball court, and he's sitting there and doing his stuff. I mean, if there was like 12 or 13 guys going every Friday, that's one thing. But when you show up and there's only 2 guys, there's only really so much you can do. A lot of being able to be the best you can be in sitting volleyball is gameplay. You need to know gameplay situations. That's so big. You have to have a high sitting volleyball IQ, and you just don't get that with 2 people, hitting the ball back and forth to each other. But yeah, exactly. If there were regional centers that had practice on a daily basis or even on a weekly basis, it would make a huge difference. But I think we're getting there. I think that USA sitting volleyball team, we go around the nation and we participate in these tournaments, these grassroots tournaments, and the sport is growing. People are, not just by, us, disabled or amputees, but people that are able-bodied, they're playing, they're in these tournaments, they're loving it. These standing teams, they go and they join these tournaments, and I think the sport is growing here in the U.S.
Well, that one's a difficulty one, playing against them, because it's, from a technical aspect, they're better than you because they've been doing it since, in some cases, since they were kids. So it's trying to move them around and obviously make the extra limbs be a problem.
Yes, and it really is. And what we really get these standing guys, what we really get them on is butt lifts. They don't know how to keep their butts on the ground, and it's a huge advantage for guys like us because we've been playing this sport for such a long time that it's just natural. What is a butt lift? But these guys that are standing and go and sit, we hit the ball over, and this guy almost stands all the way up to hit it. I'm like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. And sometimes the refs know that they're a standing team, so they let it go. They're just, I'm just going to let it go. I'm like, no, we just lost a point because of that. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting, but it's a lot of fun, and I appreciate these guys coming out, and ladies as well. I appreciate them coming out and playing in these tournaments with us.
I think after like a domestic level, because I'm able to play more than one position. I think in tournament, I've done it, and it'd be dependent on the referee's experience. But it's doing it against taller players to do it on purpose and say it through the net. By the way, I'm going to do this.
Yes.
Play mind games. I think it was one. What did I didn't get all the block on it, and it obviously went out of bounds. Obviously, they win the point. But the next one, I didn't go anywhere. And I think he had he's gonna come up higher, so I'm gonna hit it. And I obviously didn't put my hands up, and this ball goes out flying out of bounds. Like, I'm playing my game. That's why. Yeah. But then you've got it. They'll go and say, "Oh, referee, did you not see that?" Yeah. Oh well, he didn't see it. That's not my problem.
Yeah, that's right.
I think. Obviously, at domestic level, you're going to get away with a lot more than internationally. So I think it's because he's gone into our captain. He's gone into skeleton now. So he's a bit of a. I would say he's got a bit of a screw loose to a certain extent to want to. But he was a below the knee amputee, and. Oh God, how tall would he be? About a little bit taller than me, and he'd be renowned for doing it. And you're thinking, I'm behind him, and I can see probably, I say about a gap like this, probably 2-3 inches between the floor and his ass. So you're thinking, okay, how can you not see that? But they're only human. And I think it's, I think at times. maybe they should give a bit of leniency, because I think they define it as, what's the word term I've heard in the past? Spectacular play, and then you're allowed to get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're thinking, well, what would you define as spectacular play? It's a difficult one. Normally, it should be something chasing after it.
Right, exactly. Geez. Spectacular play. That, to me, it's no missed serves. And what I mean by missed serves is don't hit it into the net or out of bounds when you're serving the ball.
So I've got one better than that.
What's that?
Tournament. I hit the antenna.
Oh, that little antenna. And you're like, don't hit the antenna. Don't hit the antenna. There you go. You hit the antenna. But
one of the girls, I think, one of the US girls won one better than that. They did it in the final.
Oh,
so
that's embarrassing. Jeez.
Well, you could say in a certain context it's a skill, because it's not that wide.
That is hard to do. The only way you're able to hit the antenna is if you don't want to. That's how it works. It's the only way. But yeah, movement too is huge. Spectacular gameplay is movement, ball control, and serving.
But in terms of like coaching, how is your coach still from a standing background? Come from a standing background, sorry.
Yes, our coaches come from a standing background, but I think they've been doing it long enough that they get it. They know that even the subtle differences, and especially the USA Paralympic women's coach. He's a surgeon out there. He's very precise and knows exactly what he's doing and how to treat each and every girl. And we have he's a new men's coach for about 2 years now. I think he's been there for 2 years, and he coaches at a college in standing volleyball, but he knows the difference, and he knows the sitting volleyball just as well as he knows the standing volleyball. So yeah, I feel like everybody seems to come from that standing background if they have played volleyball, and they've had to kind of train their brain to kind of turn that off. Now, some people, they play standing and sitting like in the same week, and I don't know how they do that. I can't do that. So.
No, but I only ask you that question, Brad, because obviously our head coach was from a standing background, and he'd say to the players, like the thing, adjust movement-wise. Yeah, you can do that in standing because it's your legs that are moving. Then obviously you can adapt. Sitting down, I think the player's probably in the back of their mind, I'll listen to what you say, but consciously that's impossible to do. Or you could probably move, I don't know, a couple of inches, but then you're reacting, or as opposed to you are anticipating what's coming, and thus if you don't move, because it'd be like, you could have moved, I don't know, but an inch. Yeah, but if I just lean over to the side here and kind of use my torso, I can use my body weight as you are expecting me to move. Even the better teams don't do that, or they can read it that well. They've moved in the flight of the ball. The flight in the moment of the ball is in flight.
Right. Yeah, it's like they know that it's going to be there before it even gets hit.
But then it's very much, they've got the tactical nous and things like that. It's in a way, as we've discussed, Paralympic sport is very different from its Olympic counterpart, because it's, in an essence, if we use volleyball, wheelchair basketball, they're sort of like chess games as well.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. There's a lot more to it than being stronger, faster, bigger. It's a lot of strategy to it. And it's just like a chess game. You have to know who's where and where your weak spots are and where their weak spots are. So it's just, I love the sport. I love it. I love that it's a team sport. I love that really challenges me, especially. I've never played volleyball at all before I was asked to play sitting volleyball. The good news is I didn't have any bad habits. The bad news is I had no idea what I was doing. So it's been just such an eye opener for me and really has brought a lot of joy to my life.
I'm probably the similar until somebody said, would you give a shot at obviously doing it with the eye of making the team for London 2012? I think 4 years earlier, I'd even badmouthed it when I was watching in Beijing. Oh, this looks, well, not badmouthed in a bad way, but this looks easy. And anybody off the street could do it. But then when I actually had to do the skill and actually do it, I'm thinking, okay, I was maybe a little bit ignorant and to say this sport is easy because I don't. Maybe from an aerobic standpoint, you're thinking, well, we have to put in a hell of a lot more hours of training,
right?
At times, so you're thinking maybe a little bit arrogance. You're thinking, well, okay, our worth ethic is maybe higher. And you're thinking, oh, this is hard. I've said to people, I was wrong, dead wrong, and it was hard to pick up a skill because, like you've attested to on this episode, it's not a skill that you do and you've ever had to employ in the past. Right. So, last question for you.
Right. It's sure.
I'll let you. You were about to say something, so I'll let you.
No, I was just going to say that I think the word sitting in it makes people subconsciously think, oh, it's easy. You just sit there and you hit the ball. But the sitting's the hard part. I mean, you have to stay seated and those floors aren't soft. You know, we're not playing on foam floors. Those are hardwood floors. And
I think it depends where though. Internationally, it's not. I won't go as far as that, but Paralympic level is tire reflex. But then,
yeah, that's better. What's that you're talking about? Ones that have the little squares, the square tile.
No,
kind
I hate
things?
that one. I hate that.
Oh, I can't stand it.
That one, I hate it. No, I mean, as in it's. How would you describe it? It's like foam, but it's not. The material.
It has a little bit of give to it.
Yeah.
Yes. I know which one you're talking about. We actually played on one of those floors in San Diego a couple weeks ago at a tournament, and I was in heaven. I was like, this is incredible. I'm used to these hardwood floors, but this one was nice.
But I think to kind of come to my point with that, when I say it's somewhat not good, I think the one we had for London, and did we train on it beforehand? It was a slightly different color, I think, material-wise. It wasn't what's the word I want? Slidey in a kind of essence, because the ones we trained on in the past, you'd push, you'd go a hell of a lot further. With this one, kind of stick a little bit. You're thinking, okay, I haven't got the push. So a lot of things I look back and I watch a video, you're thinking, diving for balls. Well, if I'd have been on this one we practiced on, I'd possibly have got it. I won't say probably, because that's probably another exaggeration. But you're thinking, oh, come on, I could have got that a few weeks ago. Right. It's probably a level. Obviously, the teams are going to practice on it. We had a scrimmage against the Brazilians before the tournament started. I think who else and you're going to have practice games against other countries in the lead up, so you can kind of gauge. A lot of politics involved, as you probably know, in terms of other countries saying, "Oh no, you're not. We won't scrimmage against you because we don't think you're good enough." So it's right. Like, well, you could look at it one or two ways. Okay, we're not on the level of you, so it's still a practice match. You could use it in terms of what if scenarios. It's a way of maybe look at it. It's maybe in a bad way. It's maybe that mindset approach of we're better than you, so why bother? Kind of it's I can understand it. Whereas, well, we didn't have that luxury. You guys are probably on the same level. When it's a lower country that asks, "Oh, can we play against you?" You're not going to say no.
Right. I mean, it's gameplay. It's so that's the way I look at it. It's like, man, I don't care if you guys are 8-year-olds. I will get out there. It's gameplay. I get to check the situation out. I get to stay mentally sharp. So yeah. I mean, there's a lot of politics to it, but it's, to me, it's worth it because it's such a great sport. I love it.
And last question before we wrap up the episode, Brett. If you had to summarize this episode into one sentence for people to take away, what would that be?
I would probably say, if you look at guys like you and me, you can see that we're broken. We're not whole, but in reality, we're all broken in a way. It might not be physically, it might be, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. But broken doesn't mean broke. Just because you're broken, it doesn't mean that you can't make a difference or you can't get out of bed and carry on. Broken doesn't mean broke. You got to find something, you got to find a goal, you got to strive for it, and you just can't quit. And I think I would like people to take that away from this is that yeah, you might be down and out, you might be hurting, you might be sad, depressed, but you know what? It's not the end of the line. There's always something else on the horizon, and keep working for the horizon.
I think that's great quote there, Brett. So once again, thanks for coming on the Mindset Game podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome. Thank you.
And before I forget, I would really appreciate it if you would be so kind as to leave a short written review, as it helps to get the podcast more notoriety and it would be more visible in future to others, and thus helping more people, which my guests and I are all about. Once again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time for another episode of the Mindset Game podcast.